Replacing a driveway requires a multi-thousand-dollar capital layout. You're pouring a permanent piece of infrastructure that dictates both your home's daily utility and its long-term curb appeal for decades. But if you start looking at concrete pricing in Dayton for 2026, you will hit a massive, confusing spread. Quotes currently range anywhere from $6 to $18 per square foot. For a standard two-car driveway of around 600 square feet, the low end of that spectrum prices out to a highly approachable baseline of roughly $3,600. This chart maps the same 600 square foot footprint. The baseline sits at $3,600, but variables can drive the upper extreme past the $10,800 threshold. This $7,000 gap makes it difficult to tell if a contractor is overcharging or if a low bid is cutting corners. Finding your actual cost requires evaluating the site preparation, structural needs, and aesthetic upgrades specific to your lot. A concrete quote reflects a specific set of structural requirements and aesthetic choices, rather than a universal price per square foot. The first major cost variable impacts your quote before new concrete arrives. It comes down to how we deal with the existing surface. If your current driveway only shows isolated surface cracks or minor spalling, patching or resurfacing offers significant operational and financial benefits. It restores the surface for a fraction of the cost of replacement. However, widespread heaving or a failing subbase mandate a complete tear-out. You cannot pour a level slab over compromised ground. Breaking out and hauling away that old material acts as a cost multiplier. Depending on the thickness of the old slab and the accessibility of your lot, disposal adds $1 to $4 per square foot. Then we hit the Dayton clay factor. The Miami Valley sits on heavy clay soil that absorbs moisture and shifts dramatically through seasonal freeze and thaw cycles. This quadrant chart maps your foundation options based on cost and durability. Patching sits in the low-effort, low-durability corner. Full tear-out and gravel base installation lands firmly in the high-cost, high-durability quadrant. Excavating down and installing a proper, heavily compacted gravel base over that clay prevents the slab from shifting and cracking as the moisture levels change. It requires heavy equipment and intensive labor, justifying its high placement on the cost axis. Opting for a budget installation that skips proper gravel grading leaves the new concrete resting directly on unstable clay. The first hard winter will likely fracture the slab. Because robust base preparation and demolition are structural prerequisites for a lasting driveway, they immediately increase the baseline project cost. If you are replacing an existing driveway, advertised $6 per foot rates are usually impossible to achieve. Once the soil is stabilized, we have to account for the physical weight pressing down from above. A standard residential pour is 4 inches thick, relying on the compacted base for support without heavy internal steel reinforcement. This 4-inch standard supports sedans and standard SUVs, while keeping the project budget near the lower end of the pricing spectrum. The primary structural alternative is upgrading the pour to a 6-inch depth and integrating rebar or heavy wire mesh directly into the slab. Returning to our quadrant chart, we map the 6-inch reinforced pour high on both the cost and durability axes. You only need this specific upgrade if you regularly park RVs, large commercial work trucks, or heavy equipment on your property. The extra concrete volume, combined with a steel skeleton, prevents the slab from cracking under severe concentrated point loads. Ultimately, a 6-inch reinforced pour is a mandatory requirement if you own heavy vehicles. But if you only park standard commuter cars, it is an unnecessary drain on your capital. That brings us to the final, most volatile cost driver in the entire process, the surface finish. A standard broom finish provides high traction, functional durability, and keeps the budget tightly in check. Premium aesthetic options scale up rapidly from there, specifically stamped concrete and integrally tinted slabs. Stamping concrete creates the look of seamless pavers, brick, or natural stone. It increases visual appeal without the maintenance of actual masonry joints. If we adjust our chart's vertical axis to measure aesthetic impact, stamped and tinted finishes plot at the very top for visual appeal, but also sit at the extreme far right for cost. These aesthetic choices require specialized labor and materials, instantly pushing the square foot price into the $13 to $18 range. That alone can double or triple the baseline cost of the project. You can offset some of these premiums through project bundling. Pouring a matching front walkway or a backyard patio at the exact same time lowers your per-project cost because the heavy equipment and crew are already on your lot. Aesthetic upgrades and expanded project footprints are the primary reasons two structurally identical driveways on the same street can quote thousands of dollars apart. By synthesizing the soil prep, structural loads, and visual finishes, we can determine a specific buying strategy. This matrix matches 3 distinct homeowner profiles to their required specifications and expected pricing brackets. Profile 1 is the pragmatist. This is a budget-conscious homeowner parking standard commuter vehicles. The pragmatist requires a 4-inch pour with a standard broom finish. They prioritize their budget strictly for a proper gravel base to survive Dayton winters, landing squarely in the $6 to $10 range per square foot, plus any removal costs. Profile 2 is the heavy-duty user, storing an RV or heavy commercial trucks. This user skips the aesthetic upgrades entirely, sinking their entire budget into a 6-inch pour with heavy rebar reinforcement to ensure the slab survives the payload. Profile 3 is the curb appeal optimizer, looking for maximum visual impact or preparing to sell a premium property. The optimizer will select stamped or tinted finishes, preparing their budget for quotes firmly in the $13 to $18 per square foot bracket. Your final price is dictated by the soil beneath the slab, the weight of the vehicles parked on top of it, and your personal tolerance for aesthetic premiums. Online square footage averages provide a helpful baseline, but they cannot account for the specific logistics of your property. Logistical variables like sloped lot grading, poor drainage patterns, and difficult equipment access can only be assessed in person. To guarantee there are no surprise upcharges once the old concrete is torn out, demand a firm, written quote based on a physical inspection of your lot. We provide these site visits across Dayton, Kettering, Beavercreek, and the wider Miami Valley. Entering a contractor negotiation armed with your exact structural and aesthetic requirements is the most effective way to avoid overpaying for features you don't need or underbuilding a slab that won't last.